Marin,
All right, guys.
what we got up first, bud?
So, as you guys can know or see, if you guys don't, if you guys listening to this in the future, we have a UFC rising star, and that is Miranda Maverick. I'm sure most of you guys have followed her career. She is 4-2 in the UFC, winning her last two fights in a very good, impressive fashion. A cool fight fact that you might not know is that Miranda also won the 2019 Invicta Phenix Series 2 tournament, in which she defeated three fighters in one night before entering the UFC. When she's not fighting, Miranda is an artist. She gives self defense and anti bullying seminars. She loves beef jerky, and we just learned that she has nearly 100K followers on IG. Not to mention, she has 2 degrees. So it is with great pleasure that I would like to introduce Miranda Maverick.
Let's go.
Thank you very much. I like the beef jerky add in there. That's funny.
Welcome to the space, Miranda. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on here. Like I said, I just got done with a jiu-jitsu class that I did and headed home, and glad I could make it to this in plenty of time and listen to you guys talk beforehand too. I'm really excited for the card coming up more than I was last weekend, just because I know a lot of people upcoming.
Good. You'll have to give us your parlay before you leave because I'll go play it.
Don't know if I can give you a full one, but I'm friends with a lot of them on there. So even if I don't think they'll win, I'll stick with them.
Good enough. Well, I'll run the Miranda Maverick Friends parlay. It's got to
Yeah.
hit. Uh, all right, so we're going to pass it around between our hosts here. There's a few of us. I get the lucky nomination of going first. So I'm a MMA focused guy, so I'm going to start with MMA focused stuff.
All right.
You fought in November. I'll be honest, even when I rewatched it, so like I've seen all your fights. I've seen every fight you've had in the UFC for sure, and I've definitely seen some of your Invicta fights, just because I watch all types of MMA. But I went back and rewatched a bunch of your stuff when we found out you were coming, and like even the Shayna Young fight, even knowing it goes to decision, I was waiting for the finish the whole time. Like big credit to her for not going out. But at the end of the fight, you called out Molly. You made statement about people in the top 15 that maybe shouldn't be there, and I don't disagree. I'm sure you know this as of this morning. You are in the top 15.
Yes, yeah, I actually posted about it today, which I find it the top 15 amusing. You know, it'll be 1 week I'm in, 1 week I'm out, 1 week I'm in, 1 week I'm out. And my joke with my coaches and everything is it's just politics. You know, it's just whoever won, whoever lost, whoever decides to put up the rankings that week. And at the time, Molly McCann was in the top 15 when she hadn't fought anybody in the top 50. You know, and so I made that comment because the only reason she was there was for the hype, because she was the only one from the UK. There's a couple others who are just older fighters who haven't fought in a while or haven't fought that high level in a while that are there that shouldn't be. Of course, Macy's pretty far up there, and I feel like my robbery that I had against her really helped elevate her, and that's always irritating to watch. And I think Erin's really showing her stock to be higher and higher as she goes up too. I definitely think Jessica Andrade wasn't on her game on Saturday. One, she just came off the sofa, you know, basically. Like she had just fought Lauren Murphy. She was probably still celebrating. I'm impressed she even made weight, but she went in there and it was not a great performance by her. But I also don't want to take away anything from Erin. Her footwork, her striking, her resiliency during those combinations was awesome.
No, I agree. And like even as a Jessica mark, and like I didn't see Erin getting it, but credit to her. My question is, so Molly dropped a fight right after you called her out. Like you
Yeah.
called her out, she was like, "Let me go drop this fight real quick." So I'm gonna scratch her because she's falling below you, and
Mhm.
I mean, I think man. I don't like to disrespect fighters, but I think that's an easy fight for you. So with Molly not in consideration, who else are you trying to get to? I know in the top 15, um, Cortez, Blanchfield now, Andrade now, Murphy, Chukagian, and Farrat are the only people with out fights. Oh, Santos. So like, is there anybody particular you're trying to get to right now?
As of right now, all those girls are basically the top seven, right away. And right now, it's been pretty clear that they're not going to give me anyone that high. Unfortunately, Molly's already been a clear no to me. I asked for JoJo at one point. Tracy, I think, is definitely an option coming up just because she's been having mental issues, I think, and was taking a little bit of a break. Misha Tate is a girl I wanted to fight. She was asking for a fight, didn't have one. Now it looks like they're finally starting to line her up. That's who I wanted initially. Really, at this point, I just want to fight. I'm waiting any day. I've been waiting since basically beginning of January, saying I'm ready to go. And right now I'm sitting at fight weight just in case there's a short notice fight for me to pick up on a week notice or so.
That's awesome. Are you set on like you've struggled to get through the rankings, and you've had some, I don't want to say trouble with the company, but maybe not the push that other people get. Is it important to you at this point to fight up? Does that matter to you at this point, or do you
It
just
does.
want to fight?
I'm trying to make money. At the end of the day, I'm trying to make money, and the more we fight, the higher we get paid, right? And of course, I want to fight up the rankings eventually. I want to be the world champion at some point. But the way I see it, I'm nowhere near my prime yet, and I have plenty of time to get there. And if it means I keep getting paid more and more and actually get paid champ money by the time I get up there to champ level, then I'm happy.
Man, that's amazing to hear. I could go on for too long. So Trace, I'm gonna hand it over to you, bud. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of tie in your personal life with your work life. With
Yeah.
you having your background in psychology and having a degree in psychology, do you believe that gives you an edge going into a fight week for fight preparation? Because most likely somebody's not going to get in your head and rattle you, you know?
That's part of it, but honestly, I just credit it to the way I was raised, not necessarily my education. You know, academics are good and great, education is good and great, but the awareness that I had growing up and dealing with people, you know, at the age of 5, my dad sending me into the local stores doing business for him. I think that's a lot of the way I learned how people work, how to talk to people. And I was just talking to somebody yesterday actually about when I go to weigh-ins or anything else, I kind of reverse psychology it. You know, I stand there and I smile. I'm ready. I'm happy to be in there. And you know when somebody's nervous, you know, they get cocky and they start saying cocky stuff, or they're the opposite and they're super nervous and just don't want to look at you in the eyes or anything like that. And so when that happens, I just stare right through them, you know, and I always feel very confident when I'm walking in there. And the way I see it is, even if I'm intimidated in any way, I know that I've done the very best I can with the skills that I have to get to that point. And I watch everybody's interviews too. You know, I try to go all the way down to that depth of psychology and be like, they think this about me. They're looking for this. Let me change that game plan up a bit.
I had my hand up and you literally answered the question, so I'm just putting it down. Trace, like that was the question. Do you look at other fighters? Trace, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good, brother. She answered my question. Andrew, if you got something, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, Miranda, what's going on? I'm curious because I feel like I've had different opinions from different fighters when it comes to this question. So, I've noticed you've had 6 fights in the UFC. 3 of them are on pay-per-view cards. 3 of them have been at the Apex. I actually went to my first live event at the Apex back in November, and I actually enjoyed. I live here in Vegas, so it's easy for me to get to. I actually enjoyed it. You know, you're up close, you're up and personal. I feel like there's more intimacy to it as a fan. I know some fighters have liked it, some can't stand it. What is your experience like in the Apex versus live events?
Right. So your research is a little faded. So I've had one fight in front of a crowd. That's it, unfortunately, because one of them was Abu Dhabi back during COVID. And the other one got canceled because it was supposed to be my first one against Shanna Young. And then it got rebooked to be just an Apex card, right? So I've only fought in front of a crowd one time, and it unfortunately was my loss against Aaron Blanchfield, which I don't think the crowd affected me in the slightest. It doesn't really matter to me when I walk out there. I have a very focused mindset, and I only hear 2 to 3 voices. And sometimes I add in the other person's corners too. I train that way too. I try to train in very loud environments to where it doesn't bother me if there's a crowd screaming anything. I hear my coach's voices. I hear my dad's voice. Just in case I don't hear my coach's, he'll scream out exactly what they say because I'm always tuned into his voice more than anyone else's naturally. Sometimes I'll listen to my opponent's coaches too if they're like telling them something like hold her here, go for the submission. I'll just kind of use that reverse psychology too and be like, oh, they said this, let me wait for them to try that and capitalize on it. But I actually love the Apex. If you guys have watched my fights, you'll know that my coaches are very loud and clear. I hear almost everything they say, and I'm a very coachable fighter. So I love that the Apex, I can hear every sound that they make and clearly to where I can execute.
Very nice. Thank you for that. I apologize about the numbers.
Said one's Abu Dhabi, so even though it was a numbered card, there was no crowd, and then the other one was just the canceled bout, or else it would have been in front of a crowd. I was really excited about it, but did not happen.
I was looking at the sign. Obviously, we knew you were coming, so we're double checking all your stuff. I was looking at the picture of you today on the Fight Island sign. So when you said Abu Dhabi, I right away was like, oh, yeah, I seen that today.
Yep. Yeah, it was my debut. It was pretty exciting to have that at Abu Dhabi for sure. It was my only time out of the U.S. as well.
Really? That it's still to this date is your only time out of the U.S.?
Yep, so far.
Man, I haven't. Well, I'm in Detroit, so Canada's like across the river. So I've been to Canada, but outside of that, I haven't ventured out of the country. Marin.
Solid in the middle of the United States right now, but I'm sure at some point I'll be traveling a lot, hopefully for the UFC.
Hopefully. Marin, what you got, bud?
Hey, so just I just heard that you said that your dad goes to your fights and you listen to him. I was just wondering, what does your family think about like fighting? We have heard about like how recently how Islam's mom doesn't want him to keep on fighting, and some family members they don't like to see their other family members. I don't want to just say like sons, because it can be just family relatives. They don't like this. So just curious as to like how your family thought of you once you started into it, and how they progress now.
Yeah, so my entire immediate family is very supportive. My dad actually started teaching myself and my siblings jiu-jitsu at home from watching UFC, slowing it down, watching YouTubes, and just learning basic self-defense. That's kind of how I got my start, and I decided I wanted to go compete in jiu-jitsu. So he was very supportive from the beginning. He always said I could be the best in the world. I was raised for it. I grew up on a farm. I grew up very physically strong and had a good grappling background by the time I was 16, and walked into a gym kind of already knowing what I was doing somewhat, right? And so my dad was always super supportive. When I started fighting, I asked him if he could be in my corner, and at that point, he was still kind of my coach. Now he doesn't do any of the coaching, but I would consider him a mental coach, and he's always just there to support. And like I said, he's the one who repeats my coaches if I need it, and he's always the one to call out the times and things of that nature. My mom is also supportive. She's not as involved in the actual fighting, but she watches every fight. My entire family does. And if you didn't already know, my little sister is also a fighter at this point. She's 3-0 as an amateur and getting ready for her 4th fight, which will be a title fight as an amateur. And yeah, my husband's been in my corner before. My brother also has a solid background in grappling, was 2nd place at state in wrestling his senior year and placed a couple other years as well. And he would be a fighter, but he's a big boy, and we decided we didn't want to see him get hurt in the upper weight classes just as an amateur, and he has plenty of other things going for him in life. So I would say my whole family is basically part of the fight community.
So Miranda, what is your sister's name? Drop your sister's name so we know who to be watching for.
Yeah, Skylar Maverick. Skylar Maverick. It's Skylar Havoc Maverick. She found a word that fit for her that also rhymed, right?
Well, y'all got some of the best nicknames, man. That's pretty sweet.
What promotion is she fighting in?
She's actually fighting for Peak Fighting March 11th. I just got done posting it on my Instagram story. She's actually looking for sponsors, but go follow her on Instagram. I think it's just Skylar Maverick MMA. And yeah, she's coming up fast. She's 3-0 so far. Heavy wrestler, and slowly getting her striking up too. She moved out here in Denver with me a week before Christmas and is out here training with my team and my coaches.
Hey, yeah, the team in Denver is huge. Sorry, Trace, go ahead.
You're out there with Duke Rufus?
No, I'm out here with Elliot Marshall at
Elliot Marshall, okay.
And Justin Houghton over at Pound for Pound Muay Thai.
Okay.
Hey, Average. I see you with your hand up, but Trace kind of tuned in on something I wanted to ask, so I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to swing it over to you, bud. So I wanted to ask, so I just heard you say who you're with, but you changed camps, right?
I've changed camps a couple times. So I started in Springfield, Missouri, where my sister started as well, because that's where my family's from, at Springfield Fight Club. and it's great. It has a lot of amateur fighters coming up. There are now 4 UFC fighters who started at that gym. Zach Cummings, Michael Johnson, myself, and Garrett Armfield, who's actually fighting this weekend. Me and Garrett grew up together in the sport in that gym. When I hit grad school, I moved out to Virginia and trained out at the House of Muay Thai in Norfolk, BJJ, out there in Norfolk, Virginia. And then once I was done with school and ready to kind of go wherever I wanted, I looked across all the different states, all the different gyms, and I chose Denver, Colorado to be where I wanted to become the best. I think they have an amazing team out here, an amazing set of coaches, and a very large women's team, which is important to me considering I'd always trained with just men, and it's very different moving with bodies that are your flexibility, your size, your speed, all that.
That's awesome. I know the scene out in Colorado, Denver area is huge because you've got the Olympic Training Center out there, which naturally kind of created a gym scene out there. And yeah, I know that is definitely one of the places to be if you want to take your career serious, regardless of where you land out there.
Yeah, I think so.
Average, what you got, bud?
First of all, hello Miranda. Hope you're well, mate. My question is, what fight would you say you've learned the most out of all the fights in your career? Learned the most lessons from?
The Aaron Blanchfield fight. It's my only fight that I'll truly say I lost. Like, I've had close splits before, and that's usually when I lose fights. I don't think I've ever lost every round of a fight, and that time I did. And I went into that fight being very much the dominant striker into it, and she was timing me when I would stand up too tall and just start throwing combos and coming forward, which is kind of my game at the time, as I was just, a bull in a china cabinet, rushing forward, beating up, bullying everyone. And after fighting with her, not only did I have to work on my bottom game, my bottom ground game, but also like my timing, my footwork, timing myself when I come in, moving back and forth, being able to fight backwards, all the above. I went back to the drawing board big time, figured out a lot of holes in my game that had never been exposed before. I had never been put on bottom in a fight before past like 10 seconds. Like Jillian Robertson, I was on bottom, so to speak, but it was more a neutral back control position that I was fighting out of. And with Aaron, I was just in a different world than I was used to. And I was having a very off night. And after I had lost the first round, which up to that point, if you guys go check it out, I had never lost a first round before. And I think it shook me, and it really got to my mental capability in that fight. So afterwards, my training partners and my coaches have said so as well. I feel like I became twice a better fighter after that.
That's awesome. That's real cool.
Yeah, I want you to know we've got a pretty thick chat group that goes even like it hammers 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, even on holidays. And there was a talk today about whether or not we should say you were 5-1 or 4-2, because we feel the same way you feel about the Macy Barber fight. At least several of us do, anyways. So
Yeah.
just thought.
Anybody thought differently other than those coaches, apparently, or not coaches, judges. Everybody was messaging me after that fight. I think I had one of those fights where my stock went up from losing to, at least from a fan standpoint. And it was a sucky night. I made a respectful post afterwards saying I obviously didn't do enough, or else that wouldn't have happened. But then I remember going back to the hotel room. My dad was very mad. Like, he wouldn't hardly say a word. He was like, listen, you didn't lose that fight, but whatever you want to do, I think you should have made a different post. And I was like, well, Dad, like, let me rewatch it, but I'm going to make something respectful. And this is the way I want to handle my career. And he was like, I understand. We go back to the hotel room and we sit down and watch the fight. And I was so angry. It was so obvious to me, it wasn't even close in my eyes, even after watching it again. And after that, it's like, man, you would think that she would at least say, man, that was close, but no. And it's just, I hope I can get that one back at some point. That's a rematch that I'd love any day, anytime. But she's already said no twice to a rematch, and I'm sure that will continue until she has no choice.
Miranda, if you don't mind me tagging off of that, I actually did go back and watch that fight today because of that chat. And I was like, all right, it's been a minute, so let me see. I think you absolutely won the first 2 rounds, like no questions asked. I think the third round could have gone either way. Would you agree with that?
Yep, agreed. I think first and second were very clearly mine. And I think the third one, had they given it to me, I wouldn't have been like, that wasn't mine. But I definitely understand where they would give her the third round. It wasn't about me winning unanimously. It was that they gave her 2 out of 3 rounds when it was ridiculous. You know, you look at the striking stats, you look at the control stats, the takedowns, just all of it, all the way around. Round 3, I was just a little bit worn out, and she definitely waited until round 3 to really put the gas to the pedal, but she still did no damage and no real effect in 3, even though I would give it to her.
Yeah, that's a pretty clean breakdown of that fight there. Sounds like you may have watched the tape once or twice there, Miranda.
So, amusingly,
Wes.
so leading up to my fights, I watch my losses a lot. And so I'll watch my Erin Blanchfield fight and my Macy Barber fight just to piss myself off and get my head in the right mind space when I get ready to go out to fight.
That's an awesome attitude to have, for real.
Great game plan, right on.
Wes, go ahead, man.
It's nice to see you, bud.
What's up, buddy?
Wasn't sure if you'd make it tonight. I know you was busy, man. Very happy to see you.
I appreciate it.
What you got, bud?
So Miranda, I noticed that you mentioned the Aaron fight, for instance, and you were saying like how your mental during the fight, you were kind of shook up. So what did you do to like address that after the fact? Like, what are some of the things that you did after that, like to mentally prepare for these current fights, you know, that you have had after? Like, what did you do?
Yeah, so something that my coaches help with a lot too is I would wear myself out, whether it's go on a run, do some strength and conditioning. They'd make me grind during a bunch of grappling rounds, and then they'd throw me in with the best person in the gym the very first round and make me lose that first round. And then one of the things that we did was, if I don't come back and win the fight or get a finish, I keep going as many rounds as it takes for me to get a finish. And you know, it's hard training. I remember at one point, if you guys know who Jenna Fabian is, she fights for PFL. She's a bigger lady, and after I lost to Aaron, it was my 5th round in a row, 5th 5-minute round, and he was like, listen, if you don't get a takedown on Jenna, she's going to stay in there for as long as it takes or until you quit, and if you quit, then you can leave. And basically saying like, leave, you know? And I was like, okay. And it took me 4 minutes and 40 seconds into that round to get a takedown on her. And I still wonder if she gave it to me, but that was my only goal. I got beat up the entire time, but I finally got it. And those kind of mindset things where I'm just tired and worn out and want to quit on myself, we kept doing over and over again, and just push myself during training to where I was used to losing a round and having to come back instead of going in and just beating up everybody or losing the last round but winning the other couple.
I've got to say, you mentioned that seems like hard training or something like that. I think that is on par for how you become a champion. That's an unbelievable way to handle that situation. Rhino, I ain't heard from you yet tonight, bud. What you got?
Not much, man. I just wanted to tell Maverick here that I'm looking at my pick history for you, and it turns out I'm 4-2.
There we go. Thank you.
That's
I wish
all
it would have been 5-1 at least, right?
I was going for 6-0, but I would have took 5-1 as well.
All right. Thank you.
Average Avenues. What you got, bud?
Yeah, I know that fighters don't like to look too far in the future, but you're 15th in the rankings now. How many fights would you like to win before, you know, potentially being a title contender?
I would say about 4 fights is what I'd want to see. I don't want to just get skyrocketed necessarily, because I want to be able to prove myself at every step of the ladder. I would be fine if that actually happened, but I think 3 to 4 will be what I feel like I need to feel the confidence to be in that spot.
I think
Yeah,
realistically, cool. you're probably, you could even do it in 2 with dominant performances. I mean,
I could, you know, they give Erin that hype, which something I put against her is her promotability. I hope that I would be more promotable than she is in that area, but you never know. You never know. If they give me the right fights and the right matchups, that could definitely be a possibility. I think like an Andrade fight or somebody else that's more of that bully type fighter built similar to what I would be a very active, very exciting fight for fans to see.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Pepe. What you got?
What's up, Miranda? Good to hear from you. I've followed your career pretty close for the past couple years, and I respect you quite a bit, and love watching your fights. I know you signed a contract with a professional wrestling company last.
Oh, you cut out a little bit.
Pepe, you there?
I think we lost him.
Well,
I got
just
it.
to go ahead and address what I did hear of it, I was going to say I didn't sign with any professional wrestling company. I started training under one here in Denver, the Al Snow Pro Wrestling Academy, just so basically I could have an opportunity to get signed at some point. I'm not really going to disclose the details. I'm taking a small break from it just so I can focus on my fight, especially having a short notice opportunity as a potential right now. But I am still training there. I was training 2 times a week, and we're looking at potentially like a June, July start to just do like little indie shows here locally and start going bigger than that. You know, you see Ronda Rousey, you see Valerie Loretta take a transition from MMA to WWE, and I think the biggest problem they have is they have to take a year and a half off. They just go silent off the face of the earth because they have to learn. And if I've already learned, that is a good place for me to be able to go if I ever get injured or if my MMA career comes to a halt. I want to have other opportunities, and honestly, maybe I'll never pursue it. I have a education too, and I have other investments I'm trying to put into place. But my goal at the end of my time in the MMA is to never have to work a 9 to 5 again and have free time. And if that ends up being in the pro wrestling world, awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the dream, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, Miranda.
Exactly.
What you got?
All right, so I mean, this was one of my first questions that I had like thought of to ask you, but I mean, I feel like you kind of already answered it. But I was gonna ask you, what's your favorite martial arts? Because I mean, that's the good thing about MMA, that it's a lot of different arts all in one. So, what's your favorite one out of all of them? I mean,
Yeah, I would say Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially the no-gi portion. I not only started in that sport, but I see it as the ultimate self-defense sport. I'm big about teaching self-defense seminars, teaching to women, teaching to children, especially ones who have had like domestic abuse of any sort or sexual abuse of any sort. And Jiu-Jitsu is 100% the best one for that kind of thing. Striking is good and great, but if you look at altercations, I think it's around 82%, 85% that go to the ground. And you could know striking, you could be one of the best strikers in the world and not know how to get off the ground. And meanwhile, in jiu-jitsu, you could take the best striker down and they would not know what to do. So ultimately, I think it's not only a very dominant sport, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, but I think it's the best for practical application. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, are you there? You're cutting
That
out.
something you do online, maybe for revenue for yourself, but
I'm
self-defense
sorry.
ones are.
You cut out. I couldn't hear your question.
I said, I seen that you give those seminars on your page, and I think that's pretty awesome. I don't know if that's something you can parlay into like the internet, you know, to do those seminars like on the web or something, but pretty awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've tried a couple virtual ones. It's great if someone already has basics or, you know, a base for that. And I've even done it for gym coaches that want to learn a certain move, but never taught an actual seminar online just because it's hard for me to show people how to correct it or whatever else and physically be there to help them out. But yeah, I do seminars a lot. Like I said, self-defense ones are my favorite, but I do MMA ones, no-gi, striking, all the above.
That's awesome. All right, guys. So we only got so much of your time because that's all we asked for.
We can go with the last 3 questions if you want. I see a few hands raised.
I got one I've been saving. That's a quick one, so I'll hold it. Andrew, and we'll knock these out. Andrew, what you got?
Yeah, mine will be quick. It's more of a 2-in-1. So give me 3 of your absolute favorite TV shows or movies. It could be a combination of the two. I'm talking like movies or shows that you would recommend to watch before someone dies. And then you being from Missouri and then going to Denver, Colorado, those are big sports towns. So are you a fan of any other sports or athletes outside of combat?
One, no, I'm not really a fan of any other sports. If anybody sees my schedule, they'll understand why. I don't have time to watch sports or let alone hardly any other TV, which is part of the reason that I'll be terrible at answering your other question. But I'm a huge fan of all Disney everything. But I'm also a big John Wayne fan. The Searchers was always one of my favorites. The Fugitive, I think it's called, with Harrison Ford in it, was one of my favorites growing up. And then as far as Disney movies, I think Hercules was probably one of my favorites.
That's awesome. Trace.
Yeah, I've asked every fighter that's came on so far the same question. That's one of my, getting to know them outside of the sport. So I'm a foodie. I cook all the time. I always throw my cooking, my food stuff in the group chats. Everybody sees it. So after a fight camp, go home. What's mama cooking you?
Listen, I am a sweets person, so I ask for all the sweets, whether it be cookie dough, ice cream. I throw it all together and eat it all. I love it. I love chocolate. But as far as savory food, I usually ask for like barbecue covered meatloaves and sweet potatoes. And I'm talking like real meatloaf, not a bunch with, it tastes weird, but like pure beef meatloaf with barbecue sauce on it, sweet potatoes smothered in cinnamon and brown sugar and butter. And yeah, probably like just normal California blend vegetables with that. Pretty simple, but delicious to me.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful, man. I'm about to sign me up. Go ahead, Wes. What you got, buddy?
So what I wanted to ask is, like, obviously, like, you're like a woman of all trades. Like, you do art, like, you have your degree, right? Like, and obviously in MMA, as you mentioned, you were training for wrestling. Like, what exactly, like, drives you with MMA in particular? Like, is it that you're just really good at it? So you're like, hey, this is the one? Like, is that, like, your top priority? What makes it your top priority? Put it that way.
Well, part of it is I'm the best at it. I would go with anything that I was the best at to try to make my platform to where I can represent the values I have. But overall, MMA is the thing that I found that I was really good at. I took my first fight and I was like, well, let's see if I win. If I win, I'm going to go be the best I can be. And I've stuck with that dream since I started. And it's one of those things that actually makes money. Of course, I have other things that I'd love to do. I'd love to be able to sit at home and just draw and look out the window all day, but that doesn't make any money. So a combination of that and MMA actually making a living for me and potentially making enough of a living that can help my family and lead to investments that can help everyone around me is really what drove that aspect. And as far as doing the other things in my life, like I was saying earlier, whatever gives me the opportunity to not having to work a 9-to-5 job once I'm done with this sport is where I'm kind of directing my life. I do work a 9-to-5 job right now, but it's fully remote. I kind of get to work on my own time schedule. And I work 30 hours a week as a statistician for Hershey right now. And with that, it just makes it to where if I get hurt or I can't fight anymore, I have something else I can go to, right? I don't have this, I guess I'll be a coach at a local gym or have to start over as a waitress.
Seems like your defense is pretty good in finances.
I try my best. I will say my dad has been a good person and good resource for that growing up. He started with nothing and has turned into a pretty successful person, and he's helped me do the same.
Based on the morals I try to teach my children, your father seems like a pretty good man. Deb Picks, I know I told her I'd answer the last one, but I love you, bro, so make it really fast. What you got, bud?
Yeah, no, this is more so a comment. What do you call it? Going back on that TikTok thing. Yeah, or not TikTok thing. On the seminars, what do you call it? I was thinking, maybe you could put out like TikToks, for self-defense. I know that you probably get some, eyes, from, the woman crowd, obviously, and kids alike. Because, if you remember that one guy that would walk out, with some fighters as a joke that he would put out.
Yep, I know who you're talking about. I actually have a Patreon that I do, which is kind of like an off-brand of OnlyFans. Who knows if I'll start that platform at some point, that I post technique videos on from my seminars. But eventually I want to start a YouTube, actually, not so much a TikTok, but probably a YouTube. I just don't have time with it right now with all the other ventures I have, but I'm hoping for that soon. My husband is actually going to start helping me with that, hopefully, and get a whole computer set up and start doing that to where I can answer questions, do the whole audio with my techniques, etc.
Looking forward to it. We'll love to see it.
All right.
By the way, And just want to say I really was pissed when he got robbed by fucking Mason Barber. So sorry about
I
that.
think we all were.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you
All
for your
If
right.
time.
anybody wants to say that they were for it, go for it, because I think
All right.
it's
Hold on here. I'm going to take the last question, and then we're going to let her plug everything she does, and we're going to let her go because we're a couple minutes over right now. But I've got to ask respectfully, very, very respectfully, towards whichever fighter you name, um, who is your gatekeeper? Like, who is the person for you in front of you that you're just like, that's the person I need to beat for whatever reason? It doesn't have to be for the belt. Just, is there that one person in the division that you just quietly have your eye on all the time?
I don't know
Is
if it's
it Macy?
quietly, well, Macy, I think, is a given. Like, of course, I just want her to. I don't even know if we'll ever get to fight again because I don't see her being in the top 10 soon enough. But who knows? She might stay there a while. But honestly, it's just Erin. I want to be able to show my skills against her, show the improvements that I've made over time. And of course, Valentina being the champ right now, that's everyone's goal, right? So I'd say those two right now, Erin and Valentina. That's the final bosses, so to speak, for me to get up there and be able to show my grit against them.
That's awesome. Listen, Miranda, I know we ran a couple minutes over. I want to thank you so much for your time. It was a really awesome interview. If you want to take a minute and plug everything you do, even your sister again, for the people who joined late, I will gladly give you the time and space to do that if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I really appreciate it. One, like I said, and like you guys have mentioned on here, I do artwork. I do realistic pencil sketches that I do commissions for people if you're ever interested. So check out that. My Instagram is at Fear the Maverick. So go there, follow me if you can. My sister is Skylar Maverick, and on Instagram it's Skylar Maverick MMA. She actually has a amateur title fight coming up March 11th. So I'll be going down there to Peak Fighting in Texas to corner her, and I have several seminars upcoming too that are all over my social media, so check those out. And my website is fearthemaverick.net. If you ever want to snag some gear, I have shirts, I have boxing gloves that I've drawn out the designs myself for and created, hats, everything you could ever want, basically. But thank you guys for having me. I feel like I could talk for 2 hours on here and not get enough.
Thank you so much. Anybody, if you go to her profile, you can click. She has a link there that takes you to it's a link tree or something. I'm not hip enough to know what they are,
Yeah.
but it'll take you directly to everything she does, her Patreon, her website, and everything is there.
Yep, exactly. Thanks. You basically said more than I did in one little sentence.
Well, I was looking around.
Well, Miranda,
Thank
we're
you.
glad you came. We appreciate you coming out and making time for us. We're going to break down this week's card. You're more than welcome to hang out if you'd like to. If not, we understand. Just extending the invitation.
All right. Well, thank you. I mean, I might be adding in some comments for that since I do know a lot of them getting ready to fight.
Now you got me nervous. I'm scared. I don't want to say something against one of your people.
I'm
Uh-oh.
waiting for her to post a parlay. At least she said she'd tell us the ones she knows. I'm betting the Miranda Mavericks friends parlay. You put it in the comments, and I'm betting it. I assure you.
There we go. Now I'm gonna listen, and I'll just not like anyone who insults them. Yep.
That is fair. That is fair.
She grew up with Armfield, guys. She grew up with Armfield.
Oh, you already caught that part. That's right.
Feel free to come back too anytime.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miranda.
with locks, of course, lock bets that who's going to
right
back. Everybody else, we don't care about.
Okay.
Miranda.
Thank you guys so much.
What's
Thank
up,
you,
Anthony?
Miranda. Miranda, what you
Yes,
got
sir.
up next,
Oh, that was
bud?
you. I heard someone yell my name, but yeah. Well, like you said, we're running the card, and first up,